Let's talk about King Patrick Cripps, dual Brownlow medalist, and let's have a little look at his energy first and foremost. This human is more magical than anyone could ever possibly understand. This is somebody who has the ability to wrap a blanket of whatever illusion he wants you to feel around you. He does that with the way that he talks. He does that with the way that he builds a relationship with you very authentically. And he does that from a place of true leadership, of his masculine energy, truly understanding that for it to be at its best, the sun must be shining on him. The way he expands through life is by enjoying a journey, by enjoying the depths of the journey, the dark side, by taking the bad parts of a journey and finding an optimistic take on it. That is how he expands his life. He is currently in an energy of figuring out the type of man he wants to show up as and building a rule structure about that. This is very closely related to his family and how he is showing up for his family. We see him, we saw him at the Brownlow, we saw him with his partner, we've seen him with his new daughter, and we can see how much leadership he is taking over those parts of his life. Now that is expanding throughout his whole entire life and persona. And he is closing out some very deep cycles that have stopped him from being able to step into this energy because of the effect that that has on his self-worth. He is starting to realize what his worth is through the way that he shines his beautiful light into his family dynamics. Now, he has this wound of being very judgmental of himself, very concerned, particularly in workspace dynamics and around groups of people that he is kind of boss energy of. He is very careful and very concerned and overly critical that he is showing up enough for them, that he is helping them enough, that he is a hard worker, that he is worthy of being their leader. These are huge, huge voices in his head. When I look at his principal's office interview, there are a few things that need to be mentioned. Firstly, this is somebody who their words are magic. And if you believe in that sort of magic, his words are spells. His words are very specifically used to create the picture of what he wants you to see. So I say, go back and look at his principal's office interview. Go back and really pay attention to how he uses his words, to the specific words he chooses. And I urge you to read between the lines, because the energy that he uses is on purpose, making you look in a certain direction, because it asks you to be curious about what is in the other direction. The words that he uses are very specifically chosen so that it puts a sort of question mark over what he is not saying. Now, there were a few things that were mentioned in regards to Daddy Voss, and also a few things that were said around a few other interviews around how he spoke at the Brownlow, and the overall energy of that based on looking at both the maps of the psyche of Cripper and of Daddy Voss is that there has been a little authority shuffle there. There has been Cripper having to put his foot down in one way or another about how he shows up, about who he is. This shift that he has made into this new version of leadership, there was definitely a conversation with Daddy Voss where he had to show up as Daddy Cripper. And there is a new level of respect between them because of it. But when you read between the lines of some of the things he said in his principal's office interview, some of the things you can see that he is trying to get us to look at is that not everybody on the field trusts Daddy Voss. Not everybody on the field trusts his plan, and not everybody on the field believes that he is the right person for the job, the right leader, the right masculine energy for the job. And now with that distrust, we can see what comes of that. And we can see what we need to be looking at. So, I watched this interview and my first thought was, there he goes, doing his magic. That's it, right there. And when you kind of watch this unfold, particularly with some of the reactions that we have seen about him absolutely destroying the Brownlow medal votes, the conversations around that, how we are now looking at how that's ridiculous that we count things like that. That chaos, he chose that chaos. He specifically made moves to choose that chaos. The way that he builds relationships in a very authentic way, the way that he shows up in relationships, this need for him to be seen as somebody who works hard, it is all part of the illusion, the filter that he wants you to see his world through. And he is here to show you how to be authentic in relationships. And he is here to communicate that. And he is doing that through this ability that he has to pick and choose very specific words, very specific versions of a truth that give you a desire to look in the shadow, that give you a desire to find out why he's not saying what's in between the lines. And this is a magical power that he has. This is the same power that we see people talk about him being optimistic, how being around him makes them feel better. This is a human that you could be around. And if he wants you to feel good, you feel good. And if he wants you to feel bad about yourself, you feel bad about yourself. Now, that's not something that would happen very often, because this is somebody who chooses to find the optimism in the darkness. So let's not believe that he is somebody who is too optimistic, because for his own balance, for his own peace of mind, for him to have the control that he needs over his ego and his masculine energy to best use those as a superpower, he chooses to see the optimism in the darkness. But he is somebody very powerful in making us look in a certain direction, in making us feel a certain way, in making us want to know more. So I urge you to go back and look at that principal's office interview, specifically when he is talking about the rest of the team, specifically when he is talking about Daddy Voss. And I want you to read between the lines. And I want you to see what it is that he is asking you to look at, that he is asking you to feel, the deeper meaning behind the words he is not using. Now, I believe that he and Daddy Voss have worked themselves into a point of mutual respect. I do believe that he thinks that Voss is the right person for the job, especially because I think a conversation has happened where he has questioned the way that Daddy Voss shows up as a leader to the rest of the team. And it is through that relationship of trust that I think they have stepped into. I think it is through that relationship of trust that Daddy Voss will learn that not all relationships can be built the same, that not all dynamics you have with people can be built the same, and that there needs to be more of an emotional understanding that everybody needs to be able to show up authentically, not within a disciplined rule structure. So that's my thoughts on the magical Cripper. I believe that the reason he broke the Brownlow is because he has just started a new journey on being able to use his authority, his ego, his communication, on being able to use those things to force people to start building more authentic relationships. And he's on this journey for the next 2 years of really understanding that being overly critical of himself is holding him back from being able to see what his whole entire energy and the power of that is about. So we will see him facing some demons, and we will see him facing them quite publicly over the next couple of years, because he is being shown this in the part of his psyche that rules over his career, that rules over his social and outward appearance in society. So watch this space for this transformation that he is on right now. And when April rolls around, this is somebody who will be ready through a filter of fun, through a filter of discipline, through a filter of wanting to allow the sun to shine on who he is as a man. This is somebody who will be able to convince anybody who runs out on that field with him that they are winning the flag that year. You're a very interesting human, Patrick Cripps. And I hope that you lean further into your magic, because I don't think you've even scratched the surface. Go Blues.